Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel HFY Lustrum where real HFY stories you get. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel to get latest HFY stories. Let's start the story.
Invited by my alien friend's mom? I never expected this to happen. Damien stared at the glowing message on his comm device for the fifth time that hour, his thumb hovering over the acceptance button. Shayna requests your presence for dinner this evening. 7th hour. Please confirm. The formal tone did nothing to calm his racing heart. He'd known Corvith since their first semester at the Interstellar Academy. His roommate, his study partner, his unlikely best friend despite coming from a planet 3 systems away. But an invitation to his family's home? That was entirely different territory. Just accepted already, Corvith had laughed when Damien mentioned it during their morning lecture. Mother doesn't bite. Well, not guests anyway. The joke didn't help. What Corvith didn't know, what Damien had carefully hidden for months, was that this invitation terrified him for an entirely different reason. Myri. Corvith's younger sister, the brilliant astrophysics student he'd watched from across lecture halls, too nervous to ever approach. She moved through the university like starlight itself, her presence commanding attention without demanding it. Now he stood outside their residential unit in the alien district, the architecture flowing with organic curves unlike the rigid geometry of human buildings. Warm amber light spilled from translucent panels, and he could hear the melodic hum of their atmospheric regulators creating the specific air composition their species preferred. He pressed the entry chime. Shayna herself answered, taller than her son, elegant in flowing garments that seemed to shift colors with her movements. Her face held the same sharp intelligence he recognized in both her children, softened by genuine warmth. Damien. Welcome, welcome. Her accent carried musical undertones that human vocal cords couldn't quite replicate. Please enter our home with open heart. The interior took his breath away. Everything glowed with subtle bioluminescence. Walls, furniture, even the air itself seemed to carry particles of light. The temperature felt perfect, the humidity ideal, as if the house itself adjusted to welcome him. I hope you don't mind, Shayna continued, guiding him deeper inside, but I had an ulterior motive for inviting you tonight. Damien's stomach dropped. Before he could respond, she gestured toward the main living space, where a familiar figure stood by the window, silhouetted against the city lights beyond. Myri turned, and their eyes met for the first time without a classroom full of people between them. I thought, Shayna said with a knowing smile, it was time you two properly met. Myri's expression flickered between surprise and something Damien desperately hoped was pleasure. She wore simple clothing, a deep violet tunic that complemented her skin's natural iridescence, but she seemed to radiate light in a way that had nothing to do with the bioluminescent surroundings. Hello, she said softly, her voice carrying that same musical quality as her mother's, though lighter, more hesitant. Hi. Damien's eloquence had apparently abandoned him entirely. Corvith emerged from another room, grinning with unmistakable mischief. Oh good you're here. Mother's been planning this for weeks. Corvith. Shayna swatted her son playfully. You'll embarrass them both. That's the idea, he laughed, then caught his mother's stern look. Fine fine. We'll be civilized hosts. Dinner was served in a circular room where the table itself seemed to grow from the floor. Dishes floated at various heights, hovering within easy reach, a disconcerting sight that Damien tried not to stare at. The food itself was surprisingly familiar. Grains, vegetables, proteins that didn't look too alien despite their unusual colors. We've adapted our cuisine, Myri explained, noticing his careful examination. Trade routes bring ingredients from dozens of worlds now. This is actually a fusion dish, earth rice with Valtorian spices. It's incredible, Damien said honestly, and was rewarded with a genuine smile. Myri prepared it, Shayna mentioned casually. She's been researching human culinary preferences. The look Myri shot her mother could have melted steel. Damien pretended not to notice his heart doing somersaults. As dinner progressed, conversation flowed more naturally. Myri discussed her thesis on quantum entanglement across dimensional boundaries, her eyes lighting up as she explained complex theories. Damien found himself drawn into the discussion, mentioning ancient Earth poets who had unknowingly described similar concepts through metaphor. Byron wrote about souls connected across any distance, he said. He called it, the light of love, the purity of grace. Poetic quantum entanglement, basically. Myri leaned forward, fascinated. I never thought about it that way. Humans understood connection before you understood the science. We felt it before we could measure it, Damien agreed. Their hands both reached for the same crystal cup, a shared water vessel in the center of the table, apparently a gesture of communal trust. Their fingers brushed, and Damien felt a shock that had nothing to do with static electricity. Myri's breath caught. She withdrew her hand slowly, but her eyes never left his. Across the table, Shayna and Corvith exchanged meaningful looks. Perhaps, Shayna said smoothly, you two would enjoy seeing Myri's garden terrace? The night blooms should be opening soon. Corvith stood immediately. Yes, and Mother and I have that thing. That important thing we need to discuss. Elsewhere. Subtle, Myri muttered, but she was smiling as she rose. Come on before they embarrass us further. The terrace was unlike anything Damien had ever seen. Plants spiraled upward in impossible geometries, their leaves and petals glowing in shifting patterns of blue, green, and soft gold. The air smelled sweet and slightly electric, like ozone after rain mixed with night-blooming jasmine. They respond to bioelectric fields, Myri explained, gesturing to the nearest cluster. As she moved closer, the flowers brightened, pulsing gently. Emotions create specific patterns in our neural activity. The plants evolved to read them. That's beautiful, Damien breathed. And terrifying. They can literally see what you're feeling. Only in broad strokes. Happiness, sadness, fear. She paused, glancing at him. Other things. The plants around her shimmered with warm golden light. They walked slowly through the garden paths, careful not to brush against each other yet acutely aware of every inch of space between them. The city sprawled below, a tapestry of lights from a dozen different architectural traditions, each district glowing with its own cultural signature. Do you ever feel? Myri started then stopped. Sorry, that's too personal. Please, Damien said. I want to know. She took a breath. Do you ever feel like you don't quite belong anywhere? I'm brilliant apparently. Top of my class, youngest researcher in the quantum division. But I'm always the alien girl to humans and to my own people. I'm too fascinated by other worlds. Too different. Damien's chest tightened with recognition. I transferred to the academy because I wanted to escape being the smart but weird kid from my district. Thought maybe around people from other worlds being different would matter less. But now I'm just the human who doesn't quite fit the mold, you know? Too curious about alien cultures, not interested in the same things my human classmates care about. Myri turned to face him fully. I've watched you in lectures. You sit in the back but you're always engaged. Always asking questions no one else thinks to ask. You noticed me? Of course I noticed you. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. How could I not? The garden around them blazed with light, plants responding to the emotional surge between them. They stood beneath an archway of luminescent vines, close enough now that Damien could see the intricate patterns in her skin, like constellations mapped across her features. I kept hoping you'd talk to me, she admitted. But you never did. I was terrified, Damien confessed. You're incredible, Myri. Brilliant and beautiful and completely out of my league. She laughed softly, a sound like wind chimes. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard you say. Above them the alien moon rose, larger than Earth's, tinged with violet, casting everything in ethereal light. The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Thank you, Myri said finally, for seeing me. Not just the brilliant alien girl. Just me. Thank you for inviting me into your world, Damien replied. They stood there, two people from different stars, discovering they'd been lonely in exactly the same way. They returned inside to find Shayna and Corvith conspicuously absent. The main living space had transformed. The ambient lighting had dimmed to a soft glow, and gentle music floated through the air, something instrumental that seemed to blend human and alien traditions. They're not even trying to be subtle, Myri said, shaking her head with affection. I don't mind, Damien admitted. They settled onto a floating couch that adjusted to their combined weight, hovering gently above the floor. The sensation was strange but not unpleasant, like sitting on water that somehow held firm. They sat closer than necessary, the space between them charged with unspoken possibility. There's a tradition in my culture, Myri said, turning to face him. Her voice was nervous now, vulnerable in a way he hadn't heard before. When two people want to show trust, to truly see each other, they share what we call koresh, the breath of understanding. How does it work? Like this. She shifted closer, their knees touching now. We press our foreheads together and breathe in sync. It's intimate. More intimate than. She trailed off, blushing in a way that made her skin shimmer. It means something. I'd be honored, Damien whispered. Myri lifted her hands to his face, her touch feather-light against his jawline. He mirrored the gesture, feeling the warmth of her skin, the subtle texture that was different from human but no less beautiful. She guided them together until their foreheads touched. Her breath was warm, carrying a subtle sweetness. They synchronized naturally, inhale, exhale, and Damien felt something shift in his chest. This close, he could see the gold flecks in her eyes, could feel the slight tremor in her hands that matched his own. Time ceased to have meaning. The city beyond the windows, the house around them, even their own names, everything faded except this connection, this moment of pure presence with another soul. Damien, she breathed against his lips, their faces so close now that speaking felt unnecessary. He wanted to kiss her. Desperately. But something held him back. Respect for the moment, for the tradition she'd shared, for the magnitude of what was building between them. Instead, he whispered, "Can I hold you?" In answer, Myri shifted, tucking herself against his chest. Damien wrapped his arms around her, and she melted into him with a soft sigh. Her head found the curve of his shoulder perfectly, as if they'd been designed to fit together despite being sculpted by different evolutionary paths. His hand moved to her hair, unique in texture, carrying subtle luminescence that flickered with her heartbeat. He stroked gently, reverently, and felt her shiver against him. "I've thought about this," she confessed, her voice muffled against his chest. "About you holding me. More times than I should admit." "Me too," he said. "Every time I saw you in the lecture hall, I imagined what it would feel like. This is better than anything I dreamed." She tilted her head up and their eyes met. The air between them crackled with tension, with want, with the kind of connection that transcended species and culture. "I should probably go soon," Damien said, not meaning a word of it. "Probably," Myri agreed, making no move to leave his arms. They stayed wrapped together in perfect silence, two hearts learning to beat in rhythm, two worlds discovering they'd always been meant to collide. Eventually, inevitably, the evening had to end. Shayna and Corvith reappeared with impeccable timing, their knowing smiles impossible to miss. Corvith's expression was pure satisfaction, the architect of a successful plan. "I trust you had a pleasant evening?" Shayna asked, though the answer was written all over both their faces. "Very pleasant," Myri said softly, her hand still resting against Damien's arm. The walk to the door felt too short. Every step was one closer to separation, to returning to reality where they were just two students from different worlds who'd shared one magical evening. At the threshold, Myri turned to face him. The amber light from inside framed her like a painting, and Damien tried to memorize every detail, the way her eyes reflected light, the slight upturn of her lips, the nervous energy that made her glow just a little brighter. "Thank you for coming tonight," she said. "For being you. For making me feel less alone." "Thank you for letting me see your world," Damien replied. "For trusting me with something real." They stood there, neither wanting to be the first to break the spell. Behind Myri, he could see Shayna gently guiding Corvith away, giving them privacy for this final moment. Damien started. Myri kissed him. It was soft, tentative, lasting only a heartbeat, but in that brief connection the universe realigned. Her lips were warm and carried that same subtle sweetness as her breath. When she pulled back, they were both trembling. "I've wanted to do that all evening," she whispered. "Please do it again," he breathed. She laughed but shook her head. "Next time. Give us something to look forward to." "When?" The word came out more desperate than he intended. "Soon. Tomorrow? We could meet at the observatory after your quantum mechanics lecture." "I'll be there." "I'd be there if you asked me to cross 3 star systems." She smiled, radiant and shy and perfect. "Tomorrow is fine for now." One more brief touch, her hand squeezing his, and then he was walking down the corridor, his legs somehow carrying him forward while his heart remained behind. The night air hit him like cold water, shocking him back into his own skin. He'd barely made it to the transit station when his comm device chimed. A message, written in flowing script that he now recognized as Myri's handwriting translated into digital form. "I can still feel where your hands touched my hair. When can I see you again?" His fingers flew across the device. "Tomorrow feels impossibly far away. But I'll count every hour until then." Her response came immediately, "Count them with me." Damien walked home through streets that suddenly seemed brighter, more alive. Above him, stars from 1,000 different systems burned in the night sky, witnesses to every impossible love story the universe had ever written. Tonight it had started writing one more. He was human. She was not. By every logical measure they shouldn't work. But logic had never accounted for the way her laughter made his chest feel lighter, or the way she'd looked at him like he was the only real thing in her world, or the way one evening had rewritten everything he thought he knew about connection. Tomorrow he would see her again. And the day after that. And every day she'd let him, until their separate worlds became one shared universe. At his apartment, Damien collapsed onto his bed, Myri's kiss still tingling on his lips. His comm device chimed once more. Sleep well, Damien. Dream of gardens and starlight. I know I will. He typed back with a smile that hurt his face. Already am. Two worlds had touched. Two hearts had recognized each other across the vast loneliness of space. And in a universe infinite in its possibilities, they had found each other in a single, perfect evening. It wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of everything. The end.